Hi, my name's Andy Anu. Nice to meet you. uh, I'm an artist living in the outer skirts of Philadelphia, kind of basically in the woods, the Willow Grove area.
My name is Chelsea Lester. I identify as queer. I'm just gonna leave it at queer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
My name is Arian Wilkerson. I am 29. My pronouns are they, them, she, they, them. Um, I am a queer, black, non-binary, pause person.
So my name is Nia Primus. My pronouns are she, her, and I identify as queer.
Okay, so my name is Darrell, and the pronouns that I prefer for me are he, him, but because I'm so into the culture, I embrace all pronouns. I'm not insulted if you call me they or them. Even if I'm talking to, people who are a little bit more into the culture and they're referring to me as a she or something like that, I don't mind, but just personally I prefer to be referred to as a him.
My name is Romeo Saunders. I go by he, him, and I identify as, this is kind of complicated, I would say pansexual, even though other people wouldn't.
My name is Malachi Lilly. I use they, them pronouns. I'm 26 years old and I identify as a shapeshifter, but to use the more typical gender terminology, I guess I'm agender.
The internet just gets it so good. Memes are so great. They are the voice of the millennial young people.
Yes.
Yeah,
You sure look good, yo.
Oh my God, you look great. Do you want to see yourself again?
Low key.
Okay. All right. I'm just okay. Cool. Yes, you're still a hottie. Don't worry.
You're good.
Right? Like, can we just please live?
Yeah. Awesome. All right, lips are fresh. You look amazing.
Thank you.
All right, let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Ready? To change pace, you say you identify as they, them, he, him. Can you talk about that experience of like learning that's how you wanted to be identified?
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like it was kind of tied in to the whole trippiness of the trippy world I was getting myself into, and seeing myself more as like my soul than the thing that I'm currently hosting in. And yeah, just my whole life, I always kind of felt like I was kind of living a masculine experience, but within I guess a feminine casing. So I was like, I don't know, and I didn't know that was I knew it was a thing because I was experiencing it, but I didn't know that it was I don't know. I didn't know there were words to describe it, and I didn't know there were words to describe myself as that. So, going to art school and meeting other people who were genderly queer and just queer in general and shit and trans, I was like, oh, so I don't have to identify as the thing that is on the papers. I can just say how my soul feels and just be seen as how my soul is, and not just how much what this limiting flesh body has to say for me.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I identified as a they, them in 2016. I was definitely, I felt like very cisgendered up until then. And it wasn't really until 2019 when my best friend and my roommate was like, bitch, you're trans. Because I would just talk about never wanting to be in this body, and always wanting to always wishing that I was a woman, and always feeling lazy because I never thought that I would be a pretty girl, and it just was I have to like face it, I'm a pretty male bodied person, so I gotta work with whatever I got, and I never really wanted to do the harmonic transitional thing. Not because I was against it, just because it was just gonna be it's just a lot of work, and I felt like if I did it earlier in my life, I wouldn't know who I would be. Um, so the she came really later on in life because, yeah, I really started to just dress effeminate and wear effeminate clothing, and it really started to become more of a, not a character, but like an alter ego, and then the alter ego then started to become a person, and it feels interesting because like, I own like 10 pairs of high heels and lots of lingerie, lots of, I would say, neutral clothing or women's clothing or whatever they like to describe it as. But I really like how I feel when I'm sort of in that state and like that person that I become.
When you tell people you identify as queer and they would ask you what that means, how would you break that down for them?
It depends on the person.
That
It
you're
depends.
explaining it to?
Yeah, it depends on the person
Okay.
I'm explaining it to. Because if it's an older person, they're like, wait, queer.
Sure.
They're like, hold up. People, y'all use that now. So then it's like that whole conversation starts.
Okay.
And how that's kind of been like reclaimed. So it's usually like me explaining it to that, or I usually explain it as I'm just not straight.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's a lot of division between like the trans community, bi community, gay community, lesbian community. So I feel like queer just kind of, it brings everyone together. So
Love that.
when I say queer, I just mean like I'm in that.
Awesome. Okay. Beautiful. In the beginning, you said you identify as pansexual, but most people wouldn't consider that your label. Why do you feel like most people wouldn't consider that your thing?
So when it comes to pansexuals as well as bisexuals, a lot of the time people will just label you as one thing. You're either, if you're a male and you have multiple male relationships, you're gay. It's not like, it determines on what you're in that one relationship, and or how many people you have sex with, what type of people you have sex with. It's discouraging to tell people like your sexual identification because they just look at the one thing and they think of it as just plain simple, but it's a lot deeper than that.
Well, like, see, for me, because I can't help but to be myself, you know what I mean? So even if I try to be somebody else, it ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? But I'm definitely androgynous. I'm more masculine androgynous because, and it kind of took me a while to really embrace that because I feel like, femininity is seen as such a weak thing even amongst women. So I didn't want to have to suppress that part of myself because of social norms. You know what I mean? Even in the LGBTQ community, when you are more masculine, that femme part of you, I don't know, I can't speak for other people, but that femme part of you kind of just, it's like more on the back burner because you want to just embrace that masculine and attract them femmes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't put on a mask. I don't pretend to be who I'm not. It just kind of, I just kind of be myself, and I am a very masculine type of person, but I don't like ooze 100% masculinity, I guess. And yeah, I just be myself, and people take what they get. That's it,
I was predominantly raised by two women, my grandmother and my aunt. So I have a lot of feminine in me, but it's weird because it's like, for me, feminine is not that stereotypical presented as feminine, like, oh, flowers and you like all that kind of thing. Femininity to me personally is a lot of strength. It's beauty and grace within both, and it's power to me because I have had so much respect for women my entire life. So when someone says to me that you have feminine qualities, I love it when it's a woman. When it's a man that says it, I feel as though they use it as a slur. Because when even my father has said to me one time, "Oh, you don't want to do something like that because you'll be like a woman," and I'm just like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, what's so wrong with being feminine? What's so wrong with being like a woman? I don't get it. I don't see the problem, because if anything, all of the women that I surround myself with are 10 times stronger than every single man that I've encountered, and I would rather be around women than I would men.
I think the through line of all my work is magic and imagination, and that's been my obsession since I was little. I've always been obsessed with fairies and mermaids and other entities that felt unseen, but I felt like I could see them. Spirits that I now know could be other entities from other realities, other dimensions. Extraterrestrial could be ancestral, that they come in many forms. And I think recently in my life I've undergone a religious transformation, a spiritual transformation, that I have released essentially conventions of Christianity that were really guiding me a lot of my life and inhibiting me a lot of my life to hide my love of all things magical and hide my innate creative abilities, because people told me that it was sinful. People told me that I was wrong, that I was evil for loving the things that I loved and for being who I am, which has always been this weird little creature that was always like outside of, inside of, dancing through, tic-tac-toeing with gender and sexuality as well. I've always been very attracted to absolutely everyone, and felt a very like young poly love for absolutely everyone, like holding love in many ways, in many capacities at all times. And so now I know that about myself, and I have actively released shame of those things every day. Of course, like, lessons in healing is not linear. It's a process that you move through every day. Self-forgiveness is a process you move through every day, releasing every moment. As it were. But now I can fully embrace my love of imagination and my love of creatures and hybridity and non-binariness in all of its forms, whether it's in humanoid existence or gender, sexuality, or what have you.
I don't go by any religion whatsoever. I am spiritual. I do worship an Orisha, which would be Shango. He has inspired me in so many different ways to be a better person. So spiritually, I've been through a lot with spirituality. I was originally, when I was in a relationship, I started learning about paganism, and I was within that community as well. And I realized it was just not for me. A lot of people, there was a lot of race issues with it. A lot of it was, everyone wanted to worship like Greek gods or Celtic gods, and it was all predominantly white. And then me, I really was interested in Middle Eastern, so I liked goddesses like Ereshkigal and Lilith and Ishtar. And when I would bring things up like that, they'd be like, "Oh, okay." And it was just like, there's so many more cultures and religions other than Greek and Celtic. It's a giant spectrum. So when I realized that, and also I realized that I felt as though also as an African American, I wasn't placed properly in there. I wasn't seen as a person. I felt like the token black guy. And I hated it. For a lot of my life, I felt like a token black guy. And once when I got out of that relationship, I started also delving more into being a gay black man. Well, gay, pansexual, whatever, a non-straight black man, there you go. And I looked more into it, and I started being more interested in the Orisha and my heritage and my roots. So by going more into African American things as well, it really sent me on like a whirlwind of pride within myself and strength.
My family found out that I was paused in a magazine and a newspaper because I was doing a really big show in Connecticut, and I got front page of the art section in the city, and it was a pretty big deal. It was a really nice color, huge photo, and a really awesome article it was awesome. Like, it was such an iconic moment. Forever and a day will be one of the most iconic things. When my close best friend from high school found out, he expressed to me that he was also past and that he hid his status to me since we were 18. So I was 17, he was 18, and he was past, and I was 17 and he was 18, and he was paused, and he never told me until I was 27 and he's 28.
That's wild, but that's beautiful that you guys
Yeah.
could like come together. And
Yeah,
be nice,
but
be honest.
it's beautiful, but it's horrible. I'm like, it's terrible that my close friend has been HIV positive since we were 18, you know? That's like my sister girl, you know? That's like my sister girl from art school. They're past, and they didn't tell me, you know? But at the same time, I understand. How could he tell me? I didn't have a language to even comprehend my friend back then, you know? I would have thought he was sick and was gonna die, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm a high schooler, you know? I'm a senior in high school at 17, you know? Like, who's like literally about to graduate at 17. I can't, of course I can't know that my best friend is HIV positive. That would ruin me. That would, you know, that would frighten me, only for me to be HIV positive years later, a few years later, or whenever it like happened, and then to tell him as a 27-year-old, he's like, bitch, I've been like that since I was 18. That's disgusting. It's disgusting that we live in a world where the queer community that cares for us, you know, we have to harbor that. We have to harbor this hate because there isn't really that much care or language for Black queer people to express their fear or their anything.
How long, if you don't mind me asking, have you come out or have you been out?
I've never had that question. I don't know, probably 5 years. I didn't even get to come out necessarily. I was outed, so I was kind of like just, you know, it's something I always knew though my whole life, but you know, it was set for me like 5 years ago. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, that must have been like a little bit of a traumatic experience.
You know, I didn't realize it until recently that it even was a traumatic experience at all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it was one of those things where, I don't know, I didn't really have much support other than like my childhood best friend who, you know, dealt with it, you know, the way she knew how. She was definitely a shoulder for me though. But yeah, we never really talked about it though. I never actually talked about it to anybody. I kind of like handled it the way that I always had to handle any type of hardship in my life. Just, you know, fortitude, no closure or nothing like that. Just brush it off. But, you know, I learned as I got older and like still learning that, you know, that can affect you later on. And that, you know, trauma is real. You know what I mean? I'm definitely more comfortable about it now than I ever was before. It's funny because now I can't even imagine what like being in the closet would be like today. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't even imagine just not being able to be myself, not being able to just, you know, be free for real. So in a way, like, I don't know, in a way it's almost like that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone in like the best way possible. Because I don't know when I would have came out if that didn't happen.
I think a lot about my ability to see the world and understand the world and want to make the world. And I guess the world that I want to live in is a little bit more safer than it is now, but also a little bit more transparent. I think the world that I live in, people care and people use information to process and to discover and to reconfigure, and people really care.
Being a Black male and being a homosexual is not easy. I definitely know how uncomfortable it can be to honestly wear any color, like other than black or white. To wear pink out, and even if you're not gay, and to be a black male, I can't even. I don't want to get that dark. Is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. It's all based on you. I just whatever you're comfortable with. Absolutely.
I know for me sometimes I love fashion. I love to wear colors. I love to match things, and sometimes it's uncomfortable to go into certain spaces because you don't know if you're gonna get into a fight with someone. You don't know if you're gonna get called something, and you think once when like, oh, I'm tough, I can get called whatever and be okay with it. But then when it happens, sometimes it's just kind of like, oh, and it hurts. Like the main one for me, that's the most uncomfortable place to be is a barbershop. For a black male to go into a barbershop and to wear anything that's like maybe pink or even have a conversation about something that's not sports, especially I don't know sports. I don't know sports at all. So going into that barbershop, I'm quiet. I try not to look at anyone. I keep my eyes down because I don't want to have that altercation with someone. So that's why I feel like seeing more representation within the media is so important because it's more normal because it's always been around but it's not represented as much.
Yeah, beautiful. And I heard you were talking about the hypermasculinity at the barbershop and all that stuff. Yeah, is that something you feel like you face a lot more out in the world too as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as bad as it would be in a barbershop because it's a closed space and I don't like that. You never know what's gonna happen in there. Like someone can just get up and then be like, "You effing," and it's like. But out in the world, especially within Philadelphia, there's different areas. Where I am, I'm in Germantown, so that area is not bad. It's not perfect. But I haven't run into any issues, but that's also because I like to keep to myself. I like to make myself basically invisible so I don't have those type of issues. But I could only imagine if I were the stereotypical hyper-feminine type of person, I would not feel safe leaving out of my home. And I want a world where everyone can feel safe.
Yeah, I also like this idea of how your friend called you out and like helped you see a version of yourself that you didn't see yet. How that leads me to my next question. How do you feel like queer community has helped you to develop and become the person that you are today?
It's toxic because it's like they help you, but if you're already taught something without a lot of care in it, you're going to teach it the same way, you know? So I feel like all my queer folks and families, they looked out for me, but it was in some partialship ruined me because it's either lessons get better over time or you learn a lesson and you don't repeat it so you're able to teach someone not to make that mistake, you know? I think a lot about my mom actually more so than I think about the queer community because I think about like how I feel like my mom didn't teach me a lot of things that I had to learn on my own or learn through the queer community, and that's fucked up because they're learning things while trying to also, you know, like what I said earlier, like I have to deal with my business and also deal with my relationship, you know, like, and there isn't a lot of people who are, you know, fully equipped with the language or the tools or the mindsets or the resources to help you like get better. So I love my queer community. They've looked out for me. They taught me all the things in the world, but I also feel like it is a dog eat dog community. You know, yeah, we see houses and we see balls and we see the media now sort of turning and polls and everything turning us into, I guess, a digestible functioning language, but it doesn't. It still stays in 1980 and goes to 1999. You know what I mean? Like, we don't, like we're talking about the just advancement of black queers sort of post Noah's Ark on logo or something. You know what I mean?
So you said you were trying to separate yourself from the community. Can you speak on that more?
Yeah, because I feel like this is more weird hot take stuff, but like I feel like what a community is more of like people coming together and knowing their differences but respecting each other despite of that. So like even having like a community, I don't know. Yeah, it's more of that aspect than how I feel like community is being like presented online and stuff, where it's like everybody there is expected to be like on the same wave already, when I feel like true community is really something where nobody is on the same wave really, but you understand that and you're just making it work regardless. So I've been kind of like, and I feel like you can only really reach to that point of like community once you realize you as yourself as the first community, and then you can bring your community together with other people's communities, and then work from there. Yeah, I know it's kind of a hot take, but like I love that people are making like their safe spaces and are coming together and finding family with one another. I think it's beautiful. It's just, I think I appreciate people more for their differences than our similarities in the end. So that's kind of why I've been distancing myself from that kind of scene and going for something I feel is more organic.
Yeah, I think community is the best because then it makes everything feel like normal. Like I feel like coming out can be so scary and intense, but when you already have that big community, it just feels more natural because it is. It feels more natural and normal just to be like, oh yeah, this is my baby, and everyone's like, all right, cool. Or like, you know, I don't know, just being surrounded by people where you think similarly and like have similar experiences is fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I just like hanging out with my friends and it being, you know, like, and them understanding. Because I love my straight friends. I love my straight friends, but they don't. I feel like it's hard for straight people to understand queerness at all. Even if they like are allies, even if they try really hard, they still don't really get it. You know. So even when you're talking about like your relationships or like your relationship with your family, like they still will never really understand. And that's important.
I love queer community with all my heart. Like, my heart is the queer community, and I think you're catching me in such a strange moment because of the pandemic that queer community has been made to look so much different. Because pre-pandemic, extremely involved in event planning, in creating the literal siphons, the literal spaces in which queer community gets to erupt and play together. That was my role. That's what I did. And when the pandemic hit, I heard Spirit telling me to stop. I heard Spirit telling me to let go of all leadership positions. I told Spirit and I heard Spirit be like, go inward. Go inward. And I felt fear and guilt in that because I felt this kind of responsibility to be very active in my community, and I didn't know what that meant when the pandemic hit, because I was focusing on organizing other organizers and other curators, because I see those who create events in community, those who curate, to be leaders in the community. And what I was observing is people of the community coming to curators and asking for support, asking almost like for our judgment of like situations, like this person harmed me here, can you do something about it? All of these asks that I think people going into event planning and curating were not prepared for, and I was trying to have those conversations with people pre-pandemic, but then when the pandemic happened, it was absolutely a message of stop, be still, take a nap, rest. And I took that opportunity to go inward. So I know now that my role in community is one of less visibility. It's one of energy work and spirit, wisdom and guidance. I don't know fully what that's going to look like yet, and that's okay. There's a lot of unknowns, and that's okay, because the unknowns just mean it is amorphic and can shape and move in a lot of different ways. But I'm still figuring that out, what my role looks like in community going forward, because there's also just the idea I don't have spoons to curate events right now. I notice that a lot of people who are creating events are like non-Black people, and I'm like, interesting, y'all have the spoons to do this, and then the black trans folks don't. Almost like y'all weren't in constant racial violence and trauma every single day since the pandemic started. Of course before that, but it's been particularly potent. And I want people to stop and examine those dynamics before we try to replicate what we did before. I think we have an opportunity to move slowly into joining together physically, together collectively, and opportunities to re-examine those dynamics, those power dynamics, those harm structures, and the ways that we can love each other, be there for each other more intentionally. I don't have those answers, but I just want to encourage slowness in the re-examining of these dynamics.
When it comes to your sexuality and your blackness, do you feel like that's represented in your work, in the work that you do?
I hope so. I really do, you know, because I never go into writing a song or creating a composition and saying, yeah, let me show my queerness and my blackness, do this, you know what I'm saying? I just kind of feel like it's implied because it's made for me, you know what I mean? A Trinidadian American queer black person, you know? So, yeah.
Awesome. Speaking of representation through your work, there has been a rise of representation in the media with black and queerness. How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's great, but I feel like there's still so much to be done, and I hate being that person to say that because, you know, it's not to discount any of the milestones we've reached or any of the work that's been done. You know, like for example, Pose, that's a big deal. I love Pose. I study Pose, you know what I'm saying? But one thing about Pose that kind of, you know, it kind of made me a little upset was the fact that you don't see any gay black women in Pose, you know what I'm saying? You don't see any lesbians, you know what I mean? And that, until I watched, I'm blanking on the documentary name, maybe it'll come to me later, but until I basically watched the lesbian version of Paris is Posing, or Paris is Burning, I didn't realize that, you know, lesbians were in the ballroom scene. Because we aren't seen, we aren't depicted, we aren't shown. Even in Paris is Burning, you hardly see much of us. But then, you know, I started just, you know, it's killing me that I can't think about, I forgot what the documentary name is. It's on Amazon Prime. The Aggressives, I think. Aggressives is what it was. And until I watched that, I didn't realize that we even had a place in there. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that that gave me a new sense of freedom, seeing that we were actually relevant there, seeing that we actually had a place. Because I always felt like when it comes to just representation, black lesbians are just never seen or just always so scarce. You know what I mean? You got that one token black lesbian, if there's even a black lesbian. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I hope, and not even I hope, I'm going to, you know, just put us on the map more. Like, that's not even negotiable. You know what I'm saying? That is the purpose of my work, of my life. You know?
That's amazing. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think representation is a trap. That's how I feel about that. I think representation is a trap. I think visibility is a trap. It's all a trap until we work on the roots of the homophobia, the transphobia, the misogynoir, you know, like all of that roots, the, you know, the ableism, the anti-blackness, the fat phobia, the colors, and until we actually work to dismantle these roots, uproot them, and transform these energies, starting with our thoughts, until we actually dismantle these systemic systems that like incarcerate us and kill us, malnourish us. Until we do that, all that representation is going to do is put us more in the line of fire. And like I hate to say that, because I also love media. Like, I'm obsessed with animation particularly. I want to see more animations with, you know, by and with black queer characters and black queer people. You know, I want to see those things, but it also, like, you know, insert like cat arch, you know, here, and my tail puffs up and I'm like, something's not right. My ears go back, like something's not right. It doesn't actually feel safe. It's not safe. And so I think that capitalism
capitalism wants to trick us into loving representation, because what representation does is fit Black queerness into the capitalist model. We get to keep making these multi-billion-dollar movies, we get to keep making these multi-million-dollar shows, we get to keep up the glam, we get to keep up the celebrity worship, and now the celebrity worship is a Black trans person. So like, better, right? It's like, no, dismantle celebrities, abolish celebrities. Like, that's where I'm coming from. So it's like, it's such a twisted line, because like, you know, like there needs to be people like operating and putting energy into all levels of this. Like, I want more Black queer people in those industries to start like working and transforming those industries, but at the same time, that also seems to require so much energy and labor from Black queer people. So it's like, again, it just feels like a double-edged sword. And I don't have the answer of like what that transformation looks like, what that abolishment looks like. I can only, so I don't get overwhelmed and I don't get a hero complex, I don't fall into that like protagonist mindset. I just have to take it one day at a time and just create in the way that Spirit requires me to, and Spirit is asking of me to, day by day. Because, you know, I don't think myself or any individual can solve these things on their own. That's not how the mycelial network of the humanoid experience works. So, we love to see it, but also it's a trap.
Yeah, that's
my final statement.
Because I work with so many like Black and brown kids, I get to be myself and like almost teach them about queerness at a really young age, which is really important to me. And like, you know, tell them, like really just direct a lot of those conversations around sexuality. Which I wish that I had that as a kid. So like, that's really important to me, just to like form the next generation into people that, you know, can be whoever they want and feel comfortable and know like they grew up with a teacher that's like Black and queer, that they can, and that's normal and that's fine. In the shows I curate, most of the people are usually Black or brown, usually queer, usually women.
Yeah, go ahead, shout yourself out.
I'm just like,
that's,
you know, my shows and stuff. But it's important. It's important. I feel like it's important to have Black curators. It's important to have Black women curators. It's important to have all the things. But like, I don't know, there's something about being, I think mostly as a curator, it's the most important for me. Because it's something about, you know, working with like Black women of color or anything, or queer women, and just, you know, respecting their work. Especially because like, I feel like queer women of color, sometimes it feels like you're like the perfect token to some of these institutions. So like, as a curator, I feel like I can show work by people like me and actually appreciate it and show it because I know it's important. Not because I'm like, oh, they check all my boxes. Like, I get one person to check the boxes. It's like, no, I want, you know, that's a lot of institutions now. That's a lot of museums. That's a lot of guys. That's a lot of people. And I just get to do it because I love it and I care about it. And I think that's important. Artists also know that when they're in my shows, and I feel like that's, you know, that's important to me.
How did you deal with the cocoon phase of holding all of yourself in before you decided to live the way that you felt like you wanted to live?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's a multi-part answer. One that requires acknowledgments of like hurts and traumas that I've experienced, but also acknowledgments of like my privileges as well. Because I think that baby me, or just like me for a long time, was in a state of survival, in a state of distress, I think, for a lot of my life, in ways that I am only just starting to understand, in like the way like the nervous system in my body has been impacted and things like that, of like, oh, these are reverberations of a life of like holding a traumatic tension in the body. But I also know that whatever this chrysalis phase was, on the outside was not perceived because of the ways that like my Virgo personality, I guess, just to put it like simply in that way, my Virgo personality allowed me to align my practices with like capitalistic practices of like leaning myself in from a very young age. I will cite like 4th grade on into achievement. And like, you know, we were like homeless for a hot sec, and then we moved out to the country, and then I was brought into the school where there was like barely any other POC, let alone black people, and like there was a switch went off in my brain that I'm like, I have to be smarter than every other kid here if I am to survive. And so I think for like the next 10 years or so, I was in a very heavy achievement mode. And put all of my energy into schoolwork and all of my energy into whatever talents I could get my hand on. And also respectability politics, and also like appealing to adults, appealing to white adults. And the privilege that like my lighter complexion and the fact that, you know, I have a white mother was able to afford me in order to survive. And I don't think I can like just talk about that cocooning phase of like, oh, poor Malachi, like the things that Malachi leaned on to survive are ultimately destructive, are ultimately anti-black, are ultimately anti-human because of the way that they lean into capitalism, and things like that. So I think also my desire and the ways that I feel like I've been spiritually instructed to step back from leadership roles is also so that I can like dismantle those patterns, because this pattern has been going on for a long ass time in my body, and is supported by society. So it takes a lot of very intentional work to dismantle all of this within me, and that's necessary, and absolutely everyone should be doing it. If we're all going to go through this transformation, we all need to be doing the daily and momently work to dismantle colorism, dismantle anti-blackness, dismantle ableism, dismantle fat phobia, and all these other things inside of us that have been so just ground into our being in the way that we think we are supposed to look and be and act. So that feels important to acknowledge, that this cocooning process that I broke out of also came with its privileges.
In high school and in middle school, from white people I've gotten, Romeo, you're the whitest black guy that I know. And that shit, I used to laugh about it, but it hurt so much, because I was just like, I'm black though. So like, what? And then especially it didn't help that I didn't really listen to rap that heavily, or I wouldn't play it loudly or whatever. So they just took that shit and ran with it, and it went from middle school and into high school. From other black people, some were cool, but a lot of them didn't like me because they felt as though I was trying to be white. And then me going through, I did the phase, I did the band phase. I had a little mohawk, and I was embarrassed. It was not cool. I went through it, and then that didn't help people being like, oh, you really trying to be white, aren't you? And I was just like, no, I just really enjoy it. It was embarrassing. It wasn't embarrassing at the time. It was embarrassing at the time. It was a moment.
What would you tell young black queers? If you had to tell them something, what's a message you would say to them?
I would say number one, it is not gonna be easy. It is not gonna be easy. Number two, I would say don't be afraid to be yourself, because like I said, especially in the gay community, it's just such archetypes and stereotypes that so many of us feel the need to fulfill. You know what I mean? So much so that we can't just exist as who we are the unique individuals that we are. You know what I mean? We have to play some role. Don't worry about playing no role. Just be yourself. You know what I mean? Because you know you're not. If you try to be somebody else, you're not gonna be happy. So you might as well just get happy with yourself. You know what I'm saying? And also, just good luck. Because at the end of the day, like everybody has a different experience. I can't say that other black queer people have had my experience, especially American black queer people. And just like I said, good luck. You know what I mean? Life is beautiful though, so don't take that as something that's pessimistic. You know what I'm saying? Just keep your head up through all of it, and eventually all that good stuff that you've been manifesting will come. So, and I'm that's advice for myself too. You know what I mean?
Just being you is and will always be the most important thing. They always tell us that, but it's really hard when they've made being you like illegal, basically. And I know it's like really tough, but like at the end of the day, the only person who can truly stop yourself is you. So you gotta keep. I don't know. Find the place that makes you happy, and usually that place that makes you happy is within. So even if that means you gotta be a hermit, maybe you just gotta hermit it. I'm trying to hermit it.
Yeah, awesome. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I mean, no, no. I'm like, affiliate institutions, support black people, don't take don't take yourself for granted, you know what I mean? Like, as a young person, just always be informed, It's never too late to be like, informed by something,
Anything else I want to touch on? I feel grateful to have these opportunities to talk and to share, and to hopefully form connection and resonance with others. I think my life is all about connection, and so I'm just grateful to this opportunity, in the hopes to either just energetically meet new people, or maybe this will result in physically meeting new people. So I'm just grateful, and I don't know who else you've asked to do this, but I hope that I can also meet the other artists that are a part of this, because I think we should all be in love. That's all.